I consider what I am doing the next step in human evolution.
First, it started out as like fun party tricks and stuff, and then people are like, wow, this is actually can be useful.
It definitely freaks people out.
I have been a Star Wars geek since the mid-70s, and I never had the Force, but I've got about the closest thing you can get to it.
Like with this chip, sometimes like when I'm clapping, I feel my nerves tingle.
So much changed for me. I think for the first time, it felt like I had become superhuman.
The biohacking movement in the US is real. It's a radical field made up of people willing to push the limits of science and technology to access the next frontier of humanity. Whether it's people inserting microchips under their skin to replace their credit card or Tesla key, to those experimenting with gene therapies, which boost muscle mass and increase your cognitive ability, the field appears to be the next step in human body modification. But some scientists within the field are focused on targeting the fundamental cause of illness and death coming for us all: aging.
I was the first person to come along with an actual concrete, coherent plan for bringing aging under comprehensive medical control.
I'm John Weeks, and this Upgrading Humanity series is brought to you by Digital Frontier, a media company for curious minds committed to uncovering the future. Aubrey de Grey is a biomedical gerontologist and one of the leading advocates for the research and development of medical therapies to slow and even reverse aging.
The body's a machine, it accumulates damage the way any machine accumulates damage, or at least any machine with moving parts. It makes people able to think about it in a manner they understand.
In 2007, de Grey wrote the book Ending Aging and has spoken at several TED Talks explaining why he sees aging not as an immutable, inexorable fate for all humanity, but rather a mechanism that can be slowed and even reversed.
It is simply the accumulation of damage in the body. We're interested in actually repairing that damage, reversing biological age, taking people who are already maybe 60 years old and making them biologically 30 again.
At a TEDx Danubia event in Budapest, Hungary in 2013, he revealed that 2/3 of all deaths are caused by aging, but said it doesn't have to be that way.
We are within a reasonable distance, within striking distance, of developing medicine that really brings aging under the same level of medical control that we have already today for most infectious diseases, like, tuberculosis or whatever.
His work focuses on finding ways to slow the aging process, targeting 7 key factors which cause damage to the body as we age. Among his key research aims is tackling the prominence of cardiovascular disease, using gene editing and strains of bacteria to break down a specific type of cholesterol in the body. But what about those who say we should accept aging for what it is?
They'll say things like, oh dear, dictators will live forever. And you have to point out that, last I checked, dictator is fairly high on the league table of risky jobs. Not a lot of dictators survive aging in the first place. And the ones that do tend to have figured out their succession already, so they're functionally immortal anyway. Or, there's the idea, how will we pay the pensions, as if anyone was going to have a job in 50 years anyway, with AI, of course. Or, where will we put all the people, And, a lot of this is to do with... Again, the resistance to the idea that aging is just a medical problem. It's as if there's some kind of subliminal, subconscious attitude that, it's terribly important to work terribly hard to stop people getting sick, just so long as we don't succeed.
Aubrey's initial research and ideas around aging came about in the late 90s, decades before more recent trends in health and longevity. Think the lion's mane mushrooms craze, obsession with VO2 max scores, and the rise in brain-boosting alternative coffees. But Aubrey told us his work is simply about using science to tackle a problem that affects us all.
It's not about longevity at all. It's only about health. So in that sense, it's a strange question for people to ask. The people do ask it all the time. They say, why work on this? But it's just medical research, and nobody says that about medicine in general. Longevity is a side effect of health. That's a critical thing to bear in mind.
But using complex scientific research to stop the overall cause of our mortality isn't the only way people are trying to beat the aging process.
Upgrade Labs is a biohacking center or a human performance center where if you only have about 2 hours a week to upgrade your life by increasing your recovery, increasing your workout, increasing your cardiovascular health, and upgrade your brain, then we're the ones for you.
Natalie Ledbetter is CEO of Upgrade Labs 5th Street, a biohacking center in Austin that's part of a franchise founded by American entrepreneur and author Dave Asprey.
So Dave has been biohacking for, over 20 years. He invented the word biohacking. His picture's in the dictionary beside it.
Our journalist Isabel Castro visited the center in Austin, the heart of the biohacking scene in the US. It's a sort of gym of the future, offering time-strapped but health-conscious citizens the opportunity to improve their workouts, recovery, and overall health, while spending less time in the gym and using advanced tech and equipment. For example, they sub out regular kit for things like AI exercise bikes, a cell health analysis machine, and a cryotherapy chamber. At their center on Austin's 5th Street, Natalie toured Isabel around some of the unique equipment they're using to boost people's health, starting with the PEMF mats. They use magnets to send pulses through the body, measured in units called Gauss, which refer to the strength of a magnetic field.
If I could only have 2 of the devices in this whole place, I would cry, but this would be one of them. This pulses electromagnetic waves into your body. Between the top sheet and the bottom sheet, we can get you over 8,000 Gauss, which is what's necessary to treat. We don't treat anything, but in order to help someone with rheumatoid arthritis, with autoimmune, you need to get to at least 8,000 Gauss, and we're able to get even higher than that with this device. So there are different PEMF mats that you can buy for home, and those are fine, but they're usually about 1 Gauss. We're talking 8, 9, 10,000 Gauss or higher with this device. And it's good for arthritis, it's good for pain, it's good for just getting your blood flow to increase circulation to your microcirculation. It's really good for energy too. It just gives your cells the energy they need to heal themselves and to repair and do whatever it is they need to do.
And to help upgrade your brain, they offer use of their neurofeedback device, where electrodes are placed on your scalp, while sounds are played through headphones at the same time.
And so you can control the tones that you hear in the earphones based on what your brain is doing. And so you'll hear chimes and tones, and it just lets your brain hear what it's doing. Whereas otherwise, I don't know what my brain is doing, right? I meditate and I try to get my brain to an alpha brain wave state. But am I there? I don't know. Now we can actually use neurofeedback to see that I'm getting my brain in an alpha brainwave state, to know that I'm where I want to be. So Dave calls his technology 40 years of Zen, because he says that they put electrodes on monks who've been meditating for 40 years. In his program, they're able to get your brain waves to do the same thing that they could get the monks to do. But instead of 40 years, you could do it in 5 days.
And they also use something called the Big Squeeze.
It's like a giant hug for your whole body. It is a lymphatic massage device. So it has 24 different graduated compartments inside, and it measures your body size first before it begins, so that it gives each person the exact massage that they need. It's so huggy and squeezy and relaxed. It increases your parasympathetic outflow, so then it makes you really relaxed. It's so wonderful to do before bed.
It's sold as an all-in-one human upgrade center, but Natalie told Isabel it's designed to work alongside traditional Western therapies and support.
So it's very supportive, as far as you could be someone who wants to be in the Western medical paradigm, and we can support you in that. You know, you can go to your doctor and you can get your medications and you can do all the things, and we're here to support you to have more energy, to heal better, faster. Also, if you're more into holistic health, we're here to support you in that as well. What we found is that when people use our recovery devices, the PEMF, the Big Squeeze, the cryo, and the red light, their energy level naturally comes up. They start to detox, because the lymphatic massage is very detoxing. We have detox setting in the red bed. So we're able to support whether you're completely in the Western medical paradigm, or even if you're completely outside of the Western medical paradigm. You just have to be willing to use high tech.
Isabel also caught up with Upgrade Labs employee Drake, who uses the center himself for workouts.
I love it because at first I was skeptical. I've been training for years, even a personal trainer. But now, like, the training machine I was most skeptical about. But I've been getting my workouts in here. I'm taking 15 to 30 minutes max, and I am sore. My muscles are growing, and I didn't think that was going to happen. Because, like, I'm used to being in the gym for an hour up to 2 hours working out. this is kicking my butt.
And it's not just the workout equipment Drake is benefiting from.
Like the red charger might be my single favorite piece of machine.
Okay. Why is that?
Because you feel that immediately. It's like a couple of minutes, you're like, oh, I'm ready. It's doing something for me. Whatever I put it on, like I'm starting to feel it. If I'm putting it on muscles, like I recover faster. If I put it on liver, you detox.
Isabel also caught up with Dave, an Upgrade Labs client in his 70s, who explained how the center is benefiting him.
I'm 73. I have a age-enforced need for putting on some muscle and taking down organ fat.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an incredibly important thing to do at my age.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is chronic inflammation.
And so this has brought you to kind of using all of the machines.
I'm using all of them, except for the brain thing. And every one of them has an impact. Yeah, this is one of the best things I've done physically.
Dave explained he's using the center as a way of taking responsibility for his health rather than following traditional healthcare advice.
It doesn't fit into the healthcare system.
Okay.
It fits into the health production system. It fits into personal, as it should be, it fits into personal responsibility for your health.
So, if Upgrade Labs offers an entry point to biohacking, delving further under the skin of the subculture, Isabel met with some of the people taking it to the next level.
I don't consider myself to have left the human race or the human animal. I think I just enhanced what I was born with.
Len No is probably one of the biggest names in the US biohacking scene. A former hacker turned white hat who now uses the microchips embedded under his skin for good, testing the limits of various security features and carrying out so-called ethical hacking for big businesses. He's an international cybersecurity speaker and an advocate of transhumanism, the idea that combining humans and technology is the route towards the next evolution of human beings.
I think that the human animal as a entity, we're antiquated. You know, we are living in a technological and an advanced world, but the human being, we're essentially the same as we were in medieval times. I mean, I'm sure there's been some genetic upgrades that we've done as a normal path, just continuing to exist, you know, but the world that we're living in is not designed for the bodies and the capabilities that these bodies are capable of. And we are still continuously expected to do more and more with less and less. And the only way that you're going to be able to do that is to start finding ways to automate or improve the processes of the biological human.
In total, he has 10 chip implants in his arms and hands. But what are they and what do they do?
I have everything from radio frequency identification or RFID. I have multiple near field communication chips or NFC, and that's a technology that's actually built into most modern cell devices. I have a now defunct credit card. This one right here on the top of my hand was actually a credit card. It was a company called Purist. And unfortunately, this company is now gone defunct. So now I got some open real estate in the top of the left hand that I'm going to have to replace. But I use most of these chips in security engagements. So I can actually compromise mobile devices through physical contact. I can skim your badge like you used to get us into this room.
For Len, his chip implants are all about two things: convenience and security.
So, you know, most people are, very familiar with the concept of multi-factor authentication, which typically means something you have and something you know. Well, what about something you know, the password to get into my device, something you have, the device, and then something that's actually implanted inside of you? So my multi-factor is a minimum of 3, which requires physical proximity to the device that's been keyed to the chip in my arm. I have an electronic lock on my office at home, just like here, and I go up, I scan my hand, it unlocks the door, I go into my office, do my job.
He told us about the extra sense he's developed thanks to a tiny implant in his pinky finger.
I have a magnet in the tip of my pinky, which is really great for bar tricks. Doesn't have that much power, so it doesn't lift a lot of things. But what it did is it actually gave me an additional sense that I wasn't born with. I have what's called magnetic vision. So the fact that the magnet is in the tip of the pinky, there are so many nerve endings at the end of your fingertips that any movement of that magnet, even however minute, I feel. So I can actually feel electromagnetic fields and currents. If your wiring in your walls isn't shielded enough, I can run my hands over the walls and I can actually trace your electrical circuits.
But aside from quirky magnetic vision and using his hands to pay for things at the store, in his job, Len has been testing ways these chips can be used maliciously to, in his words, get ahead of the technology before bad actors do.
I know between the EU and the United States, these implants are looked at as jewelry. So if you go into say a body parlor and you want to get, a big flashy nose ring, this microchip, according to the US government, is the same as that nose ring. Even though this chip is forced to comply with rules from the FCC and the radio waves frequencies and all of that, there is nothing out there that the government is looking at in terms of these particular types of jewelry that they could be looked at as a threat. So when we do tap to pay with our phones, that's using NFC. Well, that's only one function. There are what are called NFC tags. So these are basically predefined functions that the NFC can do. One of them is a URL redirection. And that's one of the first attacks that I ever came up with in terms of a biometric attack, or excuse me, a transhuman biohacker attack. If I can program my chip to point to a Trojan virus, all I have to do is convince you as my target to just put your phone in my hand. I can actually connect it, and I've timed myself with this. I can download a malicious APK for an Android, completely get it installed in less than 7 seconds.
According to Len, there are around 60 to 80,000 people with chip implants like him in the world right now. But he predicts in 5 to 7 years' time, people will think what he's doing with chips is archaic.
I think adoption is going to come in multiple phases. For example, like I said, the credit card chip that I had in the top of my left hand, I had so much hope that this would be that piece of technology that would help normalize, this type of thing. It's something you do every day. You can just tap to pay. It's convenient. But even every time I used it, all it did was freak people out even more. The first time I ever used the credit card, I was actually in the Avis Rent-A-Car in Detroit, Michigan. I was going home to visit some family, and it was a long line, and I was thirsty. So I walked over to the vending machine and boop, got myself a soda, went back to the line. Well, this older woman behind me, walks over, slaps the machine, keeps hitting the button. There's no soda coming out. And ultimately she just gives me a dirty look and goes back. And then I walked over and got another one and handed it to my traveling companion. I don't think that with the technology that we have now, like I said, every single one of my chips is passive. I can't do anything without something else. I think once we can get to the point where we have fully embedded systems that have the ability to do input, output, power, rechargeable power, something that would have the same kind of abilities as a medical grade implant, then we're going to see the second adoption. So I think a lot of people are going to see they're going to see an interview and they're going to be like, oh, I can put my car key on here? Yeah, I'm going to do that.
And Len believes as deepfakes and generative AI increasingly blur the lines between what's real and what's not, under-the-skin implants could become a necessity for accurately identifying individuals in the future.
We are at a point in humanity's timeline where we can no longer believe what we see or what we hear. I've proven on a couple of different presentations in the past, there's nothing left that's unique about you or I that can be used as a unique identifier to a human. Every biometric authentication, and I'm not saying that this is widespread, but every single biometric authentication has been either compromised, spoofed, or bypassed. And we can talk about ourselves at a genetic level. We're individuals, right? Well, now that we have CRISPR-Cas9, I can make my genetic signature match yours in it. It may not work out long-term for me in terms of my health, but if I needed to bypass some type of an authentication, I can cut and paste your DNA into somebody else to bypass that. So is something like microchips something that we can use to act as a source of truth for an individual as we move into a new future where between deepfake and AI and the amount of data points that we leave on the internet as just part of our daily usage of the internet, How do we know that you are you? Is something like an implanted tech going to become the source of truth for a human being? Or do we move to something where our identities are now being controlled by a third party?
So, for people like Len, biohacking really is key to navigating the future of humanity. But what does the scene look like from the perspective of the people actually installing these under-the-skin microchip implants?
First, it started out as like fun party tricks and stuff, and then people are like, wow, this is actually can be useful. And more people are looking for that ability to improve themselves and improve the stuff that they're doing.
Enter Pineapple Tangaroa. He's what's known in the field as a mechanic. As well as more typical body mods like piercings, he's trained to install chips, magnets, and more under people's skin. He runs shaman modifications in Austin and Dallas, and has been doing piercings since the year 2000, and was an early adopter of implanted microchips himself.
I've had mine in my hand since 2009, 2010, so I've had it for almost 15 years now, and it's still up and running. So I use it almost, if not every day, at least like several times a week.
Fast forward to today, and business appears to be booming as more and more people look for radical ways to modify their bodies.
As far as like body modification in general, I mean, I get some pretty wild requests. I mean, I normally receive at least maybe 5-10 inquiries a week now about biohacking specifically. So even just the other day on Sunday, I had a client come in who I did a magnet implant in his hand. So that way he's now can sense magnetic fields and pick up little tiny screws and stuff like that. Is pretty cool.
So, with so many people requesting weird and wonderful implants, how often do things go wrong?
I've seen and helped and with some horror stories that have happened, just like people not really knowing what they're doing and then getting in way over their head. And then a lot of times they do a lot of these implants in their hands and in their fingers, and there's a lot of nerves in there, then a lot of nerve damage can occur if you're not aware of what you're doing. And so, yeah, unfortunately, people do dabble in it, and a lot of them do end up regretting doing it. It's, I mean, some of them are definitely less risky, but anything in your hands, and especially with all the nerve endings, I mean, if you hit a nerve lower down closer to your wrist, it can't affect anything below that, you know, so all the way to your fingertips. So it is something to be cautious about.
And there are plenty of occasions when Pineapple has rejected work, when people's requests for implants are simply unsafe or won't work as the client hopes.
Like earlier today, someone emailed me about doing a small glow-in-the-dark implant, you know, and that does have some functional use where lighting things in the dark, even just very lightly. He's a hunter, and so he's wanting to do something like that, but he didn't want it somewhere visible, so he asked for it like on top of his leg. And I told him, like, I can do it, but it's not going to work the way you want it to work, because that part of your skin is just too thick. You know, you need something that has thinner tissue, have a more firm base. So like ear cartilage will work because you can elevate that skin. It's very thin, slide it under, hold pressure, and it will heal. Back of the hand will work too, because it's still fairly thin tissue as compared to your forearm. It's much thicker, more dense, and that's stuff that you have to take in consideration with getting the implant. So even like today, that's an example of one that I rejected because I know for a fact it's not going to do what he wants to. And rather than me do what he asked and then get upset that it didn't have the function and blame me for it, so no, just reject it because it's the ethical thing to do.
And any implants that require batteries or some kind of power to operate pose their own risks, with issues around heat, potential chemical leaks, and other practical limitations. Pineapple told Isabel about one guy who found his own way around that power issue.
I know one gentleman has a Raspberry Pi implant, and they called it a peg leg. He encased the whole thing into implantable silicone and had it implanted in his leg, and that way he puts a wireless charger in his pocket So while he's walking around, it's charging it, So that's kind of neat.
Pineapple was the first to install a Tesla key chip into someone's hand, but a new emerging implant being requested by people in the US is something less about practicality and more about aesthetics: LED lights.
We've all seen Iron Man and his glowing power core, so I decided that I wanted to be Heart Man, and these guys are designing for me a red heart that I'm gonna get implanted here, like above my real heart, and they're gonna make it blink in time to my heartbeat.
While in Austin, Isabel also met up with Patry Friedman, owner of Pronomos Capital, who we heard from in episode 1. He's also part of the biohacking community and has a chip implant of his own.
I'm a transhumanist. I actually was on the board of the World Transhumanist Association for a bit, so I'm really excited about using technology to change our bodies and make them better. So to me, it doesn't seem like a big deal. And also with the chip in my hand, which unlocks my Tesla and has my business card on it, and that's like such a trip. I mean, I guess I enjoy weirding people out. Like with this chip, sometimes like when I'm clapping, I feel my nerves tingle, It's definitely not, although most of the time it's fine, it's not a big deal.
He's ready for the next level with his LED implant, the challenge of which will be how to power it. But Patry's pretty relaxed about it all.
When I suggested it, they were like, oh yeah, that shouldn't be too hard. Like, we're pretty sure we can do that. Now, battery life, you can't fit much battery under the skin. And so it'll probably only run for 10 or 15 minutes on a charge, but it's wireless charging. Okay. And so I figure that I can get have thin cotton shirts and put a charging coil in so that I can charge it and it'll still glow through. That's my plan.
For Patry though, the biohacking doesn't stop at keys and flashing lights under the skin. He's also dabbled in a form of biohacking based on complex science called gene therapy.
The follistatin gene therapy I have is from a company called MiniCircle. Their technique is plasmid based, so it doesn't edit your DNA. It puts a little loop in there of DNA that your cells make into proteins. And follistatin basically improves physical performance. It tells your body to grow more muscle. And for me, it dramatically improved my cardio. So I noticed a week after I got the follistatin, suddenly I had trouble getting out of breath. My muscles would get tired, but I couldn't tire myself out unless I went and ran a lot. It was crazy. And their technology is reversible. You can take a certain antibiotic to kill the plasmid and turn it off. And so I had it reversed as part of a study they were doing on the reversibility.
As a scientific field, gene therapy has been used to cure disease and in some cases help tackle cancer. It works by either adding or altering genes within your DNA to target specific processes in the body. In Patry's case, follistatin is a hormone that regulates levels of muscle, bone, and fat tissue. The idea with this gene therapy is if you have more follistatin, you gain muscle, lose fat, and get higher bone density.
I know there's some skeptics out there who, kind of question whether this works. I was like, well, why don't I try getting some hard data? And so I did a series of VO2 max studies, which measures your cardio performance. And I had a period of in 3 months, I increased my VO2 max from 85th to 90th percentile for my age group. And then I got the follistatin back and it went in 10 days from 85th to 90th. And then I exercised for another 3 months and went from 90th to 95th. So just getting the follistatin increased it by as much as 3 months of training before and 3 months of training after. So, I think it's pretty exciting. And for people who are worried about risk, they expect it to only last about 18 months because when those cells die, it's not changing things throughout your body. It's like a local injection, and then the cells near the injection site get this new plasmid and they make the follistatin, which goes into the bloodstream and goes to the whole body. But when those specific cells die, then they're not producing the follistatin anymore.
Someone who knows a lot about the effects of follistatin and gene therapies more widely is Mac Davis, founder of MiniCircle, the company whose study Patry took part in.
MiniCircle is a gene therapy platform company that makes gene therapies that everyone in the world can benefit from. We are currently developing applications in life extension. We're researching different bioidentical hormones that are found in people that have been shown to improve health and extend lifespan.
At the moment, in the US and the UK, most gene therapies are only available through clinical trials. But Mac, who we also heard from in episode 1, is pushing for gene therapies like follistatin treatment to be made more widely available.
Follistatin was the most researched gene therapy in history by science prior to us implementing a version of it into this mini circle plasmid platform. So there were, 30 plus years of research on follistatin itself. There were 20 to 25 years of research on using follistatin as a gene therapy before we ever tried it. Follistatin extends lifespan in mice by 32.5%, and it's very safe.
And the other key gene therapy they're working on at Minicircle, something called Clotho.
It's a hormone that controls your ability and precision to deposit calcium and phosphate. It does a lot of things. It also increases the antioxidant capacity of cells. It improves mitochondrial shuttling between brain cells. It has been shown to affect intelligence and improve fluid intelligence.
It's a treatment Mac himself has undergone, and he told Isabel what his experience was like.
It was amazing. So I did my first Clotho injection 3.5 months ago, and that night, I did it about 10 p.m., and that night I got in bed and was looking up at the ceiling and relaxing, going to sleep, and was like, wow, my mind feels incredibly clear. Like, my vision is incredibly clear. That's funny. I didn't think that it would start working within 2 hours. And then the next day, I woke up and, I normally have something called aphantasia, which means that I can't visualize things in my mind. And the morning after I took the Clotho, when I woke up, I saw these incredibly clear, just like visions, almost like dreams. They were quick and fleeting. I think I saw some fish and some other random things, but they were incredibly realistic. And I was like, oh wow, that's interesting. I've never done that before. And then I got up and I looked at the island I have in my kitchen, and I was just amazed. Just the way that I could see the objects on the table. It's almost like I could see and feel the space in between the objects and the objects in their fullness. And my vision was clearer. And that was the first moment I was like, whoa, this is definitely working. It's doing something remarkable. And so much changed for me. I think for the first time, it felt like I had become superhuman.
As with any new emerging technology like this that alters your body in such an intense way, the first question on many people's lips is, what are the side effects? But Mac says any potential negative side effects shouldn't hold people back from experiencing the benefits he believes these gene therapies offer.
All these things are tested, have been tested on animals for, in some cases, 30 years. And the pro versus con ratio, what we can see in terms of the tangible benefits of life extension, cognitive enhancement, physical fitness improvement, those seem to outweigh the mysterious lack of negative side effects for certain applications of the therapy. So Clotho, I'm not sure anyone's found any significant cost to having a higher Clotho level, and people have found many incredible benefits scientifically for it. So it just makes sense.
So, where does gene therapy fit into the biohacking subculture? And will it one day become a mainstream health hack for the masses?
I see it as a holistic stack. We're talking about evolution here, we're talking about health, and Health starts with meaningful relationships, with a reason to live. It starts with good sleep. It starts with good nutrition. That's personalized potentially for your own unique eccentricities, and starts with good fitness, clean air, clean water. So I think that gene therapy can one day be added to the pantheon of essentials, as I think hormone therapy in the last 10 years in medicine and functional medicine has been.
So, aside from being willing to experiment and explore new ways to enhance themselves, the people involved with biohacking in the US also share a desire, a responsibility to prepare humanity for the future. Whether it's to keep our identity secure, as Len suggested, with physical microchips and 3-factor authentication in the face of AI, or the need for gene therapies to become the norm in improving our biological and mental well-being, preparing for what's to come is key. And that's where Patry has his eyes focused, on combining biohacking with the rapidly and exponentially developing field of artificial intelligence and AGI.
I'm a big fan of the merger of humans and AI, and the reason is that I am like a bit of a doomer in the sense that I think that like pure computer AGI has some chance of leading to human extinction. Not definite, but some chance, and I'd really rather have as little chance as possible. And I think that one of the best paths is like augmenting human values, human brains with greater computational ability. Like there's this idea of like the no supervillain observation, which is that like there are people who kill a few people, there are people who kill like larger numbers of people, especially in war, but like people almost never seem to just try to like wipe out humanity. No one tries to kill everyone. And so whatever it is about our brains or evolution or DNA that leads to that, you know, and I think it has to do with us being a tribal species, it's not something that people try to do. So I'm like much more comfortable with a future where AI augments the abilities of human brains, and much more worried about a future where it's like an AGI that was developed independently and is not tied to a human brain. But, you know, where we're going, it's hard to know, like possibly rapid scientific advancement, possibly extinction.
And it's AGI that we're exploring further in episode 3. What could artificial general intelligence really lead to? How close are we to achieving it? And how significant will it be in the history of humanity?
It'll be much bigger than the internet, much bigger than electricity even. It'll really change the world profoundly.
AI will be used inappropriately. It's so prevalent it can't be stopped.
Come back next week to listen to episode 3 of Upgrading Humanity, a 4-part series exploring the subcultures and innovators that are setting the path for a better future. For more similar stories, sign up to our newsletters by tapping the link in the episode description.